pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for this setting. We thank you for these people. Thank you for our students and our faculty and staff. Lord, we thank you for our community. Lord, we thank you most of all for you, for your sacrifice, supreme sacrifice, that we may have life and have it more abundantly. We ask that you would be with every decision, every topic that's talked about, that you would be the center point of focus. Lord, if we do that, we know we'll be right. Lord, we ask that you to continue to be with us, go with us, and let us ever just be mindful while we're here. Lord, we ask all these things in your precious holy name. Amen.
Call the meeting to order. First item is the approval of the agenda. Michelle, do we have any additions?
I need to add a couple of personnel. I sent those to you earlier today, the resignations that came in this morning. I'm comfortable, since they're resignations, with moving them into the consent agenda if you are comfortable with that. If not, we can take care of those individually. Also, I need to add an F to discussion. We have some numbers in some grade levels that I need to share with you, and I want to make a recommendation about what we should do about some of those numbers. Okay? Those are the only things. So that would be discussion item F.
First off, do we have any issue, or does anyone have any objection to moving the resignations that Mr. Sells sent to us into the consent agenda? Is there any opposition to that? I'm sorry, I'm having to lean way down to see. Okay. So there's no opposition to that, so we can move resignations into the consent agenda. And do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the new additions in discussion and personnel?
Motion.
Second. Any discussion further? All in favor by show of hands. Motion passes with the additions.
The first item on our discussion list are the second readings for several board policies. Mr. Taylor asked if we could change policy 4353 and extend the second half of a long-term suspension to cross over the summer. Particularly that has to do with the third quarter, because the way the policy reads, the fourth quarter long-term suspension will cross the summer months anyhow. I sent that to our legal team, and the wording in legislation says that suspension, long-term suspension, shall end at the end of the school year, with the exception of the fourth quarter. I was told that the only way that we could extend the third quarter extension beyond what it already is if we were able to count the summer as part of the school year. And at this point, I don't really know how we would do that. And so, in my opinion, I believe that we're kind of locked in to leaving 4353 with the same limits on it that we had before. Okay, I believe that that was the only policy that there were any discussion points about the last time. If there are any others, I'd entertain and try to answer those. And so if there are no questions about those when we move to action items, I would recommend that we accept all of those the way they've been provided. Now,
Mark, you're not including 4130 and 5210 in that.
I am not.
Okay.
Those are additional policies that I would like to address, and you should have those with you at the moment. Policy 4130 now has to do with out-of-district enrollments, and you approved that at the last board meeting, but after I got to looking at it, I recognized that I had intended to change some of the language before that and neglected to do so. The language I would like to change in 4130 is, rather than bringing those out-of-district approvals to you, and I'm specifically speaking about out-of-county right now, rather than bringing those to you for your approval each time, I would request that you give to me the permission to approve those like we have had in the past. Now, I've placed in front of you somewhere a copy of Policy 4130 with some green highlights. The reason that I brought that to you tonight is I was not happy with the way that it looked before. It was confusing for me to read even. And so the green highlights show you, in my opinion, the highlights of that policy, okay? And you'll see that what I've highlighted is superintendent would have, or his designee, or her designee, would have the ability to approve. The second element in that is there is a timeline for when people would need to reapply. In the past, out-of-district approvals were expected, a reapplication was expected every year. That becomes burdensome for our schools in a lot of ways. And so what I'm recommending in this policy is that the out-of-district application only apply when a student is entering a different level of our school system. For example, at kindergarten, they would need to apply. At 6th grade, they would need to reapply. And at 9th grade, they would need to reapply, okay? So that we could keep track of that. On the other years, we would just remind them that they are still functioning under an out-of-district expectation, which has disciplinary and attendance and also academic requirements, okay? Those are the primary pieces in this that I want to draw your attention to as far as my changes are concerned. But I also want for you to recognize that in the policy that you have in front of you, there is no opportunity to appeal that decision. In other words, if I make the decision that a student is not going to come to our school system for whatever reason, there's no appeal built into that policy. It's marked out, okay? Now, I sent to you not too long ago a breakdown of how that is written in different school systems in Western North Carolina. There are 4, if I recall correctly, there are 4 that follow that same process. Superintendent approves, there's no appeal. I believe that there are 3 where the superintendent approves, but there is an appeal process. There is 1, if I'm not mistaken, Buncombe County, where all out-of-district students pay tuition. And we can do that, but my stars, you better give us 6 months to figure out how to do that. All right, Stephanie. And then there is 1 that is written very much like the original policy that you approved last month, where the board approves all out-of-district, okay? I am recommending, you have absolute authority to make whatever decision you want on this, that you give superintendent or designee the opportunity to approve, that we use that process of reapplying at the beginning of each change in campus, and also that there's not an appeal process, okay? That's my recommendation. Now, that's open to discussion any way that you want to discuss.
I'm okay with the superintendent doing that, but I would like to have an appeal process in there. That just gives, not that we may never need it, but I mean, it would give an option to someone.
Question.
Yes.
Doesn't so if I'm not mistaken, if a transfer out of jurisdiction comes in,
Yes.
and then there's a request by you or anyone else to transfer back, there is a potential appeal process for that, is there not? Or a request for a board hearing, maybe not appeal, maybe a poor word.
I need you to say all of that again, please.
If they're accepted and they do not meet the academic requirements or the behavioral requirements or anything like that, and there's a decision by the principal or yourself to send the child back, that can be
Yes.
that can request a
Yes.
hearing on that.
There's
So
still
there
an appeal on
is a built-in process. I know that you're thinking of the denial, but if they are accepted and something happens, there's still some sort of built-in process if there's a step 2. But I just wanted to point that out, that there is that, but, so.
And if it's the will of the board to put the appeal process back in, all we have to do is to remove the strikeout language, or the strikeout that was in the policy that you have there.
I'm not sure I'd be in favor of appeal simply because they're not our county students. I don't see where we have necessary responsibility to them until they're in the system itself, as opposed to somebody from the east or the west or wherever.
I'm talking about declining though.
Well, okay, and I think I see where Mr. McKinney's coming from on that, is to say, you know, if they're transferring, if they're not students yet, you know, it's leaving that, because it's just I think it's more for efficiency, am I correct on that? It's just the efficiency of the process, if it's a denial, because it's those that are in the best position to make those determinations are the one they're gonna see it first, and it's just the expedition, expediency of the process. I think that's the reason for not having an appellate process there for a denial. I'm not trying to convince one way or the other. I'm actually mainly just thinking out loud.
Are there any other thoughts that y'all want to express, or questions that you want to ask? And remember, you don't have to make a decision about this tonight, okay? You can consider this the first reading. However, if you are in favor of voting tonight, there's a way that we can expedite the process by using a different policy that allows for us to kind of put take out of effect that particular board policy for that decision. Would you like more time to think about this and to have conversation?
Yeah, I think it'd probably be appropriate.
Okay, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. And so we'll continue to look at that and bring it back to you at the September meeting. Okay? All right, now 5210, somebody remind me, I didn't bring those policies with me. I left them in my office. That's why I like having it over there. 5210 is about, do you remember for me?
Distribution of non-school.
Distribution of non-school material. There has been conversation in the past about whether a student display at any school, if it is from a club, is considered a sponsored display by the school or not. Okay? And the only reason that makes any difference at all is if it is a non-sponsored display. There's a different set of regulations that apply to that, which actually limit that display significantly more extensively. And those are included in that particular policy. And we've had a request to clarify that. And so I got with our legal team and found out, does a club display of material count as a school-sponsored display? And the answer is no, it does not. Therefore, it falls under the non-school sponsored element, okay? And so I went in just for significant clarification with that policy and added those pieces in for clarification for you to look at, okay? That's the significant difference in that policy. Do you have questions about that one?
I read over it, Mark. On that third page, you know, it's in our distribution or display of these materials is limited to one time per year for her organization.
Yes. That's a significant piece in there. That was not clear previously, but it is now.
Yeah. I guess the question is once a year enough, or, you know, I know we mentioned once a semester, one time. So.
Well, and you have, as a governing body, you have the right to change that language if you want to, okay? If you feel that that's too limiting, we can change once per year to once per semester, for that.
I mean, it's just something to think about.
That's up to you all, okay? I know that our administration at all of the schools, but particularly at the high school, would like definitive guidelines on this
Yeah.
so that they aren't forced into making decisions all the time. And that puts them in a very difficult place.
That's why I think this is good. Take some of that pressure off the administration.
I know that's been all of your concern. Do you want to consider this one tonight as a vote, or do you want to think about it some more and use a second reading in September? It's up to you.
Sonia, have you seen it? Have you seen this?
No, she has not.
Oh,
I think it might be good to let the administration see it
Okay.
and come back.
All right.
because she's the one that's gonna be dealing with it primarily. You're not gonna see much of that in elementary school or anything, right?
So is that the wish of the board for us to take that to the administration and let them
I'd like to
look
have
at it and have input on it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. No problem.
Mark, another clarification on this, is this has to do, everything that's displayed has to be come to a club sponsor, right?
Well, everything that is displayed doesn't have to come through a club sponsor. A display could be from a classroom. A display could be from anything that is school sponsored as well.
But it can't just be a group of students saying, hey, I want to do this.
No, there
They
has
gotta have some kind
no.
of sponsorship.
Well, they don't even have to have sponsorship for that. A display is a display, but they'll have to go through the office. And at that point, if it's just a group of students who don't have a sponsorship, then that is a non-school sponsored display, and it falls under those same regulations. That makes sense to you? Any other questions? Okay, we'll talk about that some more and look at it next time. You have in front of you a pack of information about the Swain County Schools strategic plan. We have been working on this for a while. On June the 12th, I believe it was, at that board meeting, we had three individuals and myself who kind of led you through the process that we had taken for this plan. And since that time, we've come up as a group with the strategic goals for the next 5 years. On the front page of this, you'll see things that probably you have already seen, including the belief statements. The belief statements for this plan largely came out of conversations that were held with staff and parents and with you as well. And we believe that those reflect what can and should drive us in Swain County. The vision is the same as it has been. The mission is a restatement of the Leader in Me principles. This is the same vision as a district that we've had for several years. I would draw your attention to the second page where it begins to talk about the goals. Now, the reason that we're using this format is this is a format that was developed by Franklin Covey and was established in a book called The 4 Executive Decisions. And so we are using the phrase WIG, wildly important goal, to determine what it is as a district we believe to be most important to lead us into the future. What you will see beside academics is considered to be a lag goal. A lag goal means it's something that we will be able to measure in the future. That first wildly important goal is that Swain County Schools will achieve and sustain from 2 to 4 schools that meet or exceed growth by 2026, and from 0 to 4 schools that achieve B status by 2028. Now, let me explain that first line to you. The reason it says from 2 to 4 schools, in this process, a goal needs to have a starting point and an ending point. It's called X to Y by when. Our X right now on the number of schools that meet or exceed growth as determined by the state for us is 2. This past year, if I'm not mistaken, the high school and West Elementary met growth expectations as determined by the state. Okay? So we started at 2, but our goal is for all of our schools to meet growth or exceed growth by the end of this plan, and for that to be a regular maintained event. That's why it's stated that way. The reason that we state from 0 to 4 schools that achieve B status is because we don't have any schools right now that have achieved what the state considers to be a B status. Now, I don't remember the numbers right now. Some of these folks out here probably do. So we determined that by 2028, our goal is for all schools in Swain County to have B status. Now, we have been a C-level school system and have C-level schools for a number of years. Okay? And I look for us to return to that this year as well. Okay? I don't have any information that I can release on that at this point because it hasn't been given to us in that format by the state yet. But we have determined that if we put that in front of us as a goal for the next 5 years, that will significantly drive our school system. And what we're asking is for our schools to take up that goal as well and to determine how they can then help move us towards that. Okay? I don't want to belabor any of these, but do you have any questions or thoughts about that goal?
I got some thoughts, but I don't know if you want to hear them.
I'd be happy to hear them.
Every time I see goals, my first thought goes to resources. It's hard to reach some of these goals. I think y'all do a great job of reaching the goals you have with the least amount of resources of any school system in the state. And that's what's disturbing to me. You can't reach goals, and then all of a sudden we see tonight new teachers resigning, not new, but additional teachers resigning, and we don't have replacements. That, until we get the resources we need to attract teachers, to keep good teachers, we're going to be fighting goals from now on.
And I think that everybody would agree with you on that, Jerry. One of the processes that our school system and all school systems are looking at that are following this particular platform is to ask ourselves, what is keeping us from achieving this? And that includes the opportunity to discuss resources and then to pursue those as well. The plan that you have in front of you is only one spoke of a 3-spoke wheel. And the other spokes are going to be finance and facilities. And we need to look at finances and facilities so that they can support what these goals are, and resources are going to be part of that. So I don't think anybody would disagree with you at all, Jerry.
That's a little frustrating.
It's a challenge. Yes, it is. Anybody else? Now, underneath that particular wig, you'll see lead measures. And I'm not going to go through each of those lead measures unless you want me to, or you have a specific one that you have questions about. But a lead measure is the leverage that helps us attain the goal. It's what we have decided as a school system, at least at the district level, that we need to put in place to move the needle. And we believe that if we accomplish those lead measures, that the needle will absolutely move. We've discussed all kinds of possibilities on that. But we believe that these are at the very forefront of what we need to do, and it's where we will put our energy. Now, lead measures can go away once you attain them, and they become sustained. And then you put new lead measures in. So this is something that you look at and you address every year, or even more frequently than that. Okay? So you see the lead measures there. And are there any questions that you have about the lead measures for the academic goal?
On the lead measure, A2A.
Yes.
Says we will use a system of assessments.
Yes.
Do we have those assessments in place?
We have usable assessments. I consider them usable at the elementary and the middle school the most. Assessments that allow us to formatively track. Now, I don't want to treat anyone like they don't know what I'm talking about, but I want to make sure we all have the same definitions. There are 2 different types of assessments that we talk about a lot, and one is summative, which is at the end of the road. Okay, but that's the EOG, EOC, and some of those. All right. Formative along the way to track what you're doing. And so specifically, we're really talking about formative assessments here, okay? So at the elementary school and at the middle school, we have some formative assessments that you've heard about. We've mentioned iReady. You may have heard in class, okay? There's another formative assessment tool that is used some called NC check-ins. We have those readily available, right? At the high school, it's a little different. We really have not had pre-packaged assessment tools. Right now, the high school is using a program called Common Lit, and you would have to ask Sonia exactly what that does. They have tried an assessment tool called MAP, which was a mathematical assessment program. We're not real satisfied with that. But what Sonia and her team and her staff here have been working on are common assessments within disciplines, and then using those common assessments to track the standards attained and to see where their students are. That is a work that is in process for refinement and will continue to be in process. To create your own common assessments takes time and expertise. So the answer to your question is, I think that we're probably 75% there. We can continue to look, and that would be, if Sonia and her team at the high school came up with something, that would be something that we need to look at. How do we support that financially? Okay? Did I answer that well? Okay. Any other questions about those? Our second wildly important goal is that Swain County Schools will achieve and sustain from 1 to 5 lighthouse schools by 2027. Let me explain to you, really, I'm going to try and be brief. I feel like I'm in the 53rd minute of a sermon right now. And I'm trying to keep, Brandon's checking his watch. Because when it hits noon, Brandon's out of it. See, look at that, he's out of here. He's done, okay? That's why we don't have clocks in my church. When you look at the academic pieces and some of the other things that we're doing in our school system, I consider those to be incredibly important. As a matter of fact, there are some sitting in this room right now who would say that the most important thing that we do for our students is to prepare them academically for their future. And while I wouldn't disagree with that, and I believe that there's another component, and that is, how do we get all those academic pieces to stick together so that we're making a whole person? I mean, our vision is to create students that graduate ready for a career and also for a life that has meaning and is successful. Okay. The Leader in Me process is like the concrete that goes around the gravel that we pour all the time for our construction. And you could pour the gravel out on the floor or out on the ground all the time, but it's going to move around on it. But when you put that liquid concrete around it, it puts it in place and makes it firm. And I believe that the Leader in Me process is that mixture that goes around everything and helps it stick together and go with the students. And the Lighthouse School process ensures that we have that happening in our schools, and it's very elaborate. As a matter of fact, you're going to read in some of our lead measures that we're going to be doing walkthroughs using the Lighthouse rubric. Okay, I've given you a copy of the Lighthouse rubric, but it's just a checklist. This is the Lighthouse rubric, and it's very explicit, and we can measure ourselves using it. All right. And I believe that by using this and some of the other things that we've been talking about, we will create an educational opportunity in our school system that will benefit our students when they graduate with academics and with life skills, both. And so that's why I believe that all of our schools being Lighthouse schools by 2027 is a critical piece. We have one now in the middle school. We have a couple of schools that are looking at it very, very quickly. Bright Adventures Pre-K is very likely going to be one of the first pre-K schools in North Carolina to achieve Lighthouse status. I have no doubt about that. It's a brand new process for them. And I look for the others to move in that direction as well. There are different levels of work. So that's why you see that as our leadership goal as far as the WIG there. And then you see the lead measures that are below that will help us move towards that. Now, I've said a lot, and I apologize for that. Do you have any questions or clarification that you want on I think it's really important that you notice that lead measure L2 talks about communication. And it talks about communication with all stakeholders. We have identified that communication in the school system and outside the school system is one of our top goals right now that we need to work towards, okay? And then the last one is culture. And we've come to the conclusion in a lot of ways, and Dr. Sutton has helped lead us there, that culture is what happens when all of the pieces are put in place. And so while we're focusing on culture, really we're looking at culture as a byproduct of everything else we're doing. And so it's like the beautiful stained concrete that you have in your basement or in your kitchen or wherever you have seen that. Once you're done, this is the product that you end up with. And we're going to move towards having 5 exemplary culture status schools in Swain County. And that's measured using the Leader in Me MRA. Okay? That one was easy. All right. Thoughts or questions about any of those? You are such an easy bunch. Thank you. Now, what we've done is we have already given this out to our principals, and they have started working on it with their staff. As a matter of fact, they were told to pick one to mirror and one to support, and they've done that. And so what will happen is, as you hear their school improvement NC STAR plans, you will hear these at the head, but they will have different lead measures because they've got to move the needle at their school, and every school is different. And I've heard the conversation already, and I'm excited about where we're going. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, I may be the most excited about the start of this school year that I have been in a while because I see us taking some significant steps. This is awesome. Any questions or anything? Anybody want to add anything?
I just want to ask, the action steps that you have here, is that encompass all of 5 schools, or is there different action steps for the different?
They'll have different action steps. Those
Okay.
are the action steps that we have identified for the district to take, okay? And you'll notice that they're heavy on the front end. Those action steps will be things that be elements that we'll need to look at down the road and say, well, we need to do this now, and we need to do this now. And as we check those off and they are sustained, then we'll be able to focus our attention on something else. Okay?
So are these also somewhat like checkpoints where we would get like an
Tho-
update or?
No, I wouldn't say that they're checkpoints for updates. We'll bring you updates whenever you want them. But those are end dates. We want those in place by that date, if not earlier, that you see out there on the side. I think one of those is supposed to be completed by September or October of this year. It's that critical, and it should be in place then.
I think it'd be cool to see kind of as it trends with due dates, get those kind of updates, you know, so
Sure.
we as collectively kind of know where we're at.
Sure. We'd be pleased to do that on a quarterly basis. As a matter of fact, that helps us keep a cadence of accountability for the public, which is important. Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else? Thank you for allowing me all of that time just to explain to you. Now, Mr. Clapsow is going to come. He's going to speak to something that we need you to be aware of. This doesn't require approval by you, but it is a notification. And I've asked him to add a few things in his explanation so that you can have that information also.
Good evening, thank you for your time. Summer and early fall is grant application season in the federal programs office. And one document that we have to sign off on and certify is it's called prayer certification. It's a document affirming that Swain County Schools does not interfere with constitutionally protected school prayer. And you should have a copy of that document. The meat and potatoes of that document is the top part of the prayer certification. Quickly, the other bullet points there are assurances that we are going to follow grant guidance. We're going to use sound fiscal policy. We're going to spend the money on what we say we're going to spend it on. We're going to cooperate with federal monitors when they come visit, those kinds of things. But what I want to talk to you briefly about is that prayer certification. This is not a new document. It's not a new certification. It's been a part of the title programs application for going back at least 10 years, maybe more. It's part of a renewal of No Child Left Behind in 2005, and then in 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act requires this document. Just so you're aware, this certification is directly in line with Board Policy 3515, entitled Religion in Schools. It is the policy of the Board of Education not to prevent or otherwise deny participation in constitutionally protected prayer in the system schools, consistent with guidance issued by the U.S. Department of Ed and applicable judicial decisions interpreting the religious clauses of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So, like I say, that's been our board policy as long as I can remember. And what this document is Mr. Sale would be signing off that not only are we aware of it, but we have a policy in place, and we also practice that policy as well. The reason why I'm bringing it to your attention is we cannot receive federal funds unless we turn in this certification. And every system in the state of North Carolina has to turn it into Raleigh, and then Raleigh has to turn those into U.S. Department of Ed in Washington, D.C. Do y'all have any questions about that? Like I said,
And that certification thing there, I was just wondering, is that individually or can you pray as a classroom? Or does that, how does that?
as
how
far
does
as
that
I
fall
know,
into this?
it's well, it's really covered in one or two ways. The case that allowed school prayer in the early 2000s was a Virginia law that allowed for a moment of silence, and it allows. I don't know that you can say as a class we're going to pray, but we're going to provide an opportunity for you to. You can or cannot, but you have to provide the silence to be able to afford those that want to. And also that included in that language is, you can't stop someone at lunch by themselves to pray, and you can't stop them from, reading their religious scriptures or whatever those may be. As long as they're not creating a disturbance in the learning environment and doing their own thing, that's totally fine and protected.
Did that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Evan? Anyone? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Glassstaff.
Thank you.
Several months ago, we had a conversation with you, Michelle, and many of us about the CEP program. And Cody has asked that before the school year starts that we give you an update on where we are with that, particularly with what Michelle and her team is doing to help increase participation. So Michelle has a handout for you and an explanation of where we are with that.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to give you an update on our CDP goals and what's going to be happening with the start of the new year. First, the reimbursement rates for the school were not released when we had to initially decide on the CEP. Since then, the new rates came out in July, and the additional pandemic rate has expired. So now our paid lunch rate is 37 cents less than what we expected it to be. The paid breakfast rate is 12 cents less than we expected. The free lunch rate is 8 cents less than we expected, and the free breakfast rate increased 6 cents than what we expected. Our budget has been affected by significant rise in costs in the past. The school nutrition software provider done a poll across the nation, and what they polled was that most of the school nutrition programs, their costs have almost tripled in the past year. We do not know exactly what we're going to face this year, but we are possibly expecting our health insurance increase $160 per person per month. That's a lot for me. We're also expecting a retirement expense increase of 3%, and a possibility of a state mandate salary increase of 3%. To meet these demands, participation rates have got to increase. And with that, we project it to cost us approximately $10,000 a day for lunch and breakfast for the school system. With last year's participation rates and the reimbursement rates for this year, it would only cover 60% of our costs for breakfast and lunch. We're hoping with the CEP, we're really expecting the CEP, everybody getting free breakfast and lunch, that there'll be a higher participation and we can cover about 80% of those costs. It'll still leave a 20% deficit, but I am planning on trying to cover most of that with participation increases. And we've already got a supply chain grant. We don't know the amount of it yet. It should be out sometime soon. They have released that North Carolina will be getting $35 million from the USDA. But we're just waiting to see what our part of it is. This past year, I received 2 supply chain grants, sorry. And that covered our milk for the whole school year. It will cover anything that is not processed, milk, yogurt, fruits, vegetables. I'm also planning, I've been talking to the administration at the schools, and a second chance breakfast will help increase our numbers for breakfast. And that's where we're deficit a lot. It's the biggest chance of increase that we have is for our breakfast numbers to come up. The high school, we're talking about doing a second chance. As soon as first period's over, there'll be a kiosk out here somewhere, and they can pick up a breakfast there, or they can come to the cafeteria for breakfast. I've also got themed meals planned. We're gonna do tailgate Fridays. There's gonna be Taco Tuesdays. I'm working on a new line out from the pizza bar that we have. Hopefully we'll have burgers and chicken sandwiches every other day, try to alternate it so it's not the same thing every day for the kids, but something new. And we'll continue the Smart Mouth pizza too, but they'll have the options to pick something other than just our regular menu. Give them a little more variety. I do have new recipes and items going on the menu. I've got a maroon devil chicken, which is really going to be boneless buffalo wings, basically. So hopefully that will increase some of the high school participation. I do have the brioche buns in place of the old, often complained about brown buns.
I think that's the win of the whole thing.
There's the whole participation going up. Just changing the buns. We do have some new recipes coming out. And the recipes and the new items will go across the board, basically. I don't have the chicken wings at the lower levels yet, but if it's a big hit, we'll work on it at the middle school probably. For the middle school, I've got breakfast kiosks going outside the parent drop-off to help increase that participation, and they've talked about doing a second chance breakfast too. We'll have a kiosk set up right outside the office and possibly upstairs to catch the older kids. For the elementary schools, we want to have the breakfast kiosks where the bus drop-off is. If we can just get a breakfast in everybody's hand, just help them out. And I'd like for some of it to be not necessarily, they don't have to eat it right now, but they could have it for a little bit later, like a Pop-Tart. Not everybody's hungry as soon as they get up in the mornings. That's what a lot of them said on their surveys, that they didn't want to eat, they weren't eating right now. But let them get through first period and then see. I've also got some new items at the elementary schools with the snacks. And I've got slushies already started. I've got them ordered for Halloween to try to increase the participation at the elementary schools. And and there's a picture of them on there. So I think that will help them to participate in the meals. They'll all want that slushy, so
Oh, yeah.
as long as they come and get the meal, they can have the slushy, and it counts as a fruit.
I was gonna ask, that's cool.
Yeah,
Does the Smart Mouth pizza count too?
it does.
It does.
Is there any way, if we're comfortable, I know Lisa and I had spoke about this, if we're comfortable with the ideas that you have here, and I know that it's going out on the air now, to try to go ahead and release them on Facebook, some of the
Yes.
ideas, to go ahead and let the students and parents know that these
Yes.
things are coming, so hopefully they can kind of get excited about these opportunities and begin,
Yes.
start using them on day one.
Michelle and I are going to sit down tomorrow, and we're going to sculpt an article.
Perfect.
Because the Smoky Mountain Times will have a school section this week.
Okay.
And we're going to sculpt an article and put those pieces in and express how important it is for kids to eat, and that now it's free. And so it should help their budget out. And we'll put those pieces out not only in the newspaper, because there's a portion, probably a significant portion of our population now that doesn't read a newspaper. And so we'll also put that into our Facebook. We will publicize. I told Michelle, we have got to publicize what we're doing on this. Is critical, and we will.
What do you
Okay.
think about getting something at open houses? Could we get something out that quick where it's either posted, or I think almost every open house has a packet of something. Not everything is online, so maybe getting
Okay.
something in the hands of everybody that day.
Something
I
like
can
that.
try to get one of my managers to sit at each open house and maybe talk to them and hand out menus or
Yeah.
something.
There you go.
Yeah,
We'll work on that. Yes.
I think that'd be great.
Perfect.
Then we're shooting for the 80%, and anything above that would be great.
80%'s a minimum for us.
Yeah.
We really need to be looking at 90%.
90%.
If there's any way that we can achieve that, because
Just the rate increases and
yeah,
decreases.
the decreases that really were not expected. And I know that feels like a bait and switch. I don't think that anybody did that intentionally. Is the way it is.
But breakfast went up, so that's good. So
That helped.
Yes.
It's good that we kind of push that a little bit.
That lunch decrease hurt.
Yes. I can't imagine anything that's going down.
Sure.
I do have one quick question, if you don't mind, Sonia. I'm sorry. I had someone ask me, if it increases quite a bit lunch at the high school, do we feel confident in kids getting to be able to go through the line? Because that's, I guess, maybe with their time period, and I just thought I'd ask that from someone else. Yeah, okay,
They are as good as Chick-fil-A.
awesome.
I'm being honest.
No, that's good.
Our cafeteria staff can get them through there. So I always worry about it on, the big lunches, where everybody eats at the same time. But we were able to, and we were real worried about it last year when the pizza line opened up.
Yeah.
We were real worried about that. Like, the administration was in there trying to make sure that they had the help that
Yes.
they needed. But even without us, they ran that through in about 7 minutes, I think, was the longest that it
Wow.
took them to get all of the students who came through and either lunch
Did you like
with food in their hands and nobody else had lunch.
That's awesome.
So, and their lunch period is 25 minutes, so it shouldn't be
Perfect.
Oh,
Great, thank you.
And I'm trying to put like some burgers and stuff and utilize the pizza warmer out there. So that's another line and it won't be
Kids are so
back
picky
then, so
nowadays, I'm telling you.
So kind of like we used to have the hot bar, it'll be kind of like a separate meal?
yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any questions for Michelle? I think you all can see that she's, and her team, they're really working on this.
Yeah. I'm really excited about
Yeah,
it.
thank you for the update on that.
And we'll continue to come on a quarterly basis and tell you what our numbers are and what we're doing. Perfect, okay?
Good.
Thank you.
I gave each of you a handout a little while ago with some numbers on it that had to do with the number of students that are enrolled at the moment. You know, there is a student-to-teacher ratio by which we are funded. And I think that you will see over on the right, if you look at those percentages, that some of our school grades have reached the max as far as state funding is concerned. At East, their kindergarten right now is 97.22%. And if we have many more students come into kindergarten, we're going to eclipse the state recommendation on that. You can see that at West, their kindergarten's at 100% and their first grade's at 107% right now. That concerns me for a lot of reasons. Largely, it concerns me because it's going to put a strain on the teachers if we continue to stack those up and add more kids. So I'm going to make a request tonight, and I don't know that I've ever done this before. You don't have to, and we'll do the best that we can to adjust if you say no. But I would like to close the kindergarten at both East and West to out-of-district transfers. Well, we still have to take our in-district. And I would like to close the first grade at West to out-of-district transfers at this point. Okay? And I haven't spoken to the principals or any of our staff about that. And if you believe that I'm making a mistake on that, somebody needs to say that. But when we get to 100%, I want to serve every student that we possibly can, but our Swain County students need to come first. And I've got to take care of our staff. Okay? Does that make sense to you all? Okay? Does that make sense? Okay? All right. Now, the other place that we need to watch is our freshman class here at the high school is getting really heavy. And the reason that that's a concern is because in the mandated freshman classes like English 1, some of our classes are getting to the 27, 28 level. And so we need to be very cautious with that. So the day is coming when I may need to reach out to you and say, again, we don't need to accept any more freshmen from out of district into that class, just so that we don't overload those classes too much. Okay? I don't know that we're there yet, but we're getting very close. Or would you disagree with me on that, Sonia? You would disagree. You believe that we're there now.
Because we always have students at the 11th hour enrolled who are in district. And so we are busting at the seams with not just English, history, the core classes that freshmen have to take. So we've got just a handful of slots.
Okay. And so I believe that Sonia would recommend that we close that now to out of district. And I will,
And the sophomores are getting close because my math 2 numbers are dangerously high.
okay? So if you believe that we should close to out of district,
159, we currently have 159 freshmen and 160 sophomores enrolled.
see?
And just to make sure we understand that we ate a couple of teachers last year to help financially, but that hurt us with spreading out the numbers.
So I'm comfortable saying that we, right now at this moment, we close the freshman class to out-of-district students only. And we have to accept Swain County students, okay? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's our first responsibility. It really is.
What happens if in district we continue to grow? At what point do we,
Hire more teachers.
at what point do we have to say, if you have almost 108% in one and almost 94% in another first grade,
Then we need to have a different conversation at the district level and with our administrators. And if we can find more teachers, it would be time for us to look at that. But that's the other caveat of this, is finding teachers at this hour.
Let me ask, Sonia, if you had more teachers, if you could say, get 5 more teachers. Have you got 5 spaces you could put them in? Additional spaces on what we're, above what we got? You could find a place. At some point, we're gonna have to go to the county and say, we need some support. Our kids need support. It's not gonna help me one bit, but we need some local support. We really do. That's not a criticism necessarily. I don't care if it is. We just need some support for our kids. And that's the only place I know to go for it.
I believe that's a critical piece, Jerry. And, you know, we're also waiting on the state budget to see what's going to happen there. And we've made some significant requests from there as well that are being batted back and forth. With our small schools funding, we've made a significant request there. And if it's fully funded, we'll be in a better position. But I don't know what's going to happen with that. So at this point, our greatest opportunity is with our local government, I believe. And I think that they would listen to us.
I think they would. I think we could sit down and talk to them. And tax revenues have increased because of the input of tourism in the county, and they are increasing. Our 1/4 cents of taxes increased, although that's for another item. But I think we do need to have a discussion and sit and look at it. May not get it right now, but at least it's a start.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad thing for us, for some of us to go ahead and sit down perhaps with some of the leadership in the county, because I know that they're having discussions about this as well.
Yeah. And we've not had that.
Not lately.
Forever. So,
So do we need to formally cap that, or is that not covered in the discussion we had where you just deny them and they don't have an appeal?
For this particular issue, the authority to cap grades or to cap enrollment from out of district overall has to come from you.
So you couldn't use that as a reason not to
I
accept
can.
it?
Yes, I can.
I mean, if we didn't formally do it.
Yes, I can.
So we don't really need to, I mean, all you gotta do is just deny an
Yes,
out of district.
I can.
Right.
Yes.
But we can make a motion and takes that off of you and you just say it's caps.
And,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
we want it on him, right?
No, listen, it seriously, either way is fine with me. It really is. Because on a decision like that, it's really pretty easy. We're going to take care of Swain County, and we're going to
Right.
take care of Swain County employees, and I'll stand on that. You know, people can throw tomatoes at me if they want to, it's okay.
If you need a motion, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, we need
Well,
to do it.
it's down as an action item for you all to consider, but if you don't want to, that's fine. Just
So I don't know if you could use that as a reason.
Sure I can. As long as it's not hair color or eye color.
Is that something we do now or something we wait?
We'll wait to discuss, or for
I think we need
action.
to watch that though and be careful of that. I prefer that Mark gets to have that authority, and I'll tell you why. Because, and this may not be true, but we could have a teacher come down here from another county that we need and want to bring the child with them. Would that be has that ever been an issue? I know we've had that before. I mean, it may run into a situation where it could hurt us. And that would be something that you would have to handle.
All right, if we put 4130 back on the table, then that would give him the authority to do that tonight without the review of the board. So we wouldn't have to vote on it, and it would give it to him indefinitely to make those changes when the time like this hits, so we don't have to have a board meeting to vote on it anymore. It would give whoever the superintendent is the authority to do that at any time when these numbers fluctuate. I think that's the important aspect of it, and so that may be something to consider if we don't want to do that and allow those that are watching it every single day to make those decisions. Then we can put
Then we could always-
4130 back on the
Right.
table and allow him to do that without the appeal process.
And then next time, if we want to amend that in the next meeting, we
I was about
can.
to say, you can always ask to amend 4130 later
Absolutely.
on if it's not working, but I think at this point, that may be a good alternative, rather than the board voting on it, is to give him the authority to open and close as necessary, looking at the numbers on a daily basis. If that's something you're willing to do. Okay.
And that makes me look like a really shrewd political maneuver, but I didn't think about that. Well,
I
so,
did.
so maybe you're more shrewd than I am.
That's part of it.
Okay. Any other conversation about that? Mr. White, we have no public comment tonight. And so that would move us into action with your all's permission.
Let's go ahead and move into action items.
Okay. I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the consent agenda, which includes the personnel that I've shared with you, the resignations, and all the personnel from the past several weeks, and also the July 17th, 2023 open and closed minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes unanimously.
We will do our very dead level best to get all of that information onto our website tomorrow so that people will know, and we'll notify our lead administrators of that as well this evening, okay? I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the second reading of the policies that are listed there under item B.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes unanimously.
The only thing that I see as an action item other than that is if you wanted to move to accept 4130, and if you decide that you want to do that, you have to implement policy 2450, which is a suspension of board policy, for the purpose of bypassing policy 2420 that would allow you to then approve that policy. But you don't have to do that. It's up to you all, okay?
How do we need to make that motion?
First thing to do would be to
Suspension.
suspend 2420 through the use of 2450.
2420, use 2450. Do I have a motion to suspend Rule 2420 for the use of 2450 in this limited action?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion passes with that suspension. Mr. Sell.
And then I would recommend that the Board of Education approve policy 4130 as it has been presented to you this evening.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Any opposed? Are you opposed to that, Mr. Taylor? Are you?
Now, is this just for this, the appeal process, the only thing I was thinking about?
From my understanding, this would eliminate the appeal process right now with the passage of this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That doesn't mean that it can't be
Amended.
looked at again later. But I think with the discussion of what we talked about, that's why we believed it was appropriate at this time to do that, given the nature of the numbers that we have right now. If we feel as though it needs to be readdressed, we can do that. So you're okay with it?
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to get the vote down for the record.
As RL, as a board member, you always have the right to bring up a board policy for adjustment. You just need to contact Cody and say, I'd like to do that, okay?
Yeah.
All right. To my knowledge, that is all of the action items. I can't think of anything else. Have I missed anything?
That's all I had.
Okay. Could I please invite you to be here on Wednesday morning at 8:30? That is our opening session. We're going to celebrate teachers. We're going to unroll a little bit of the strategic plan, but even more exciting than that is we've got a speaker coming in that is going to, it brings chills to me just to think about him. And I hesitate to give a whole lot away other than to say that he is the first Down syndrome man to complete the Ironman triathlon. And he's going to come and speak to us about what it means to give 1% more. And that, just a great thought. And you'll see it, we've given you a pen tonight that has our best plus 1% on it. Because that's going to be our thrust this year, okay? So if you can get away and be part of that, would encourage you. I shared with you, I believe, by 8:30. I mean, if you get here at 9, you'll still be okay, all right? I'll just make sure that everybody knows you got there late.
Why'd you look down here, you said?
I didn't say I was talking to Mitch. I shared with you, I believe, an attachment to an email about the North Carolina School Board Association opportunity for professional development. It's a $1,500 per year opportunity, and you can take any of those courses that are in there. We can take them together. You can take them separately, as a group. You can use them any way that you want to, but if that's what you want for us to participate in, you need to let me know, okay? So that we can put that in process. But that's up to you. You don't have to. It's your all's, it's your all's decision. Is that a decision that you want to make tonight, Mr. White, or do you want to ponder it and talk about it some more?
Talk about it some more, or we go ahead and make a decision? Let's talk about it a little bit.
We'll do that, okay? We'll do that. Your next meeting is September the 11th. I need to let you know that we have signed up with WCU for a speech and hearing contract, something that we do every year. You don't have to approve it because it's underneath the threshold. Costs $38,000. Is that right, Dr. Sutton? WCU speech and hearing contract, $38,000.
Provide speech services appreciated.
Okay? All right?
Okay.
That's just a notification. With that, all of the action items are complete, and I would recommend that we move into closed session to complete what we're going to do, and we will dismiss or from there, okay?
All right. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move the Board of Education go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143.318.11 for the following purposes. Under subsection A1, prevent disclosure of privileged or confidential student information pursuant to 20 U.S.C. 123G FERPA and General Statute 115C-402C under subsection A1 to prevent disclosure of privileged or confidential personnel information pursuant to General Statute 115C 319.321 and under subsection A3 to discuss matters protected by attorney-client privilege.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Closed session.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jim.